Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have lots of great questions, especially about ghosts.
All right.
Where are our loved ones who have passed away, and how can we connect to the people we've known when they're no longer in their body? How can one go and find them when they aren't in time and space anymore? And if we do reach out, how can we know that we are actually connecting with them rather than our idea or image of them?
Well, first of all, they're right here. It's just that they're in a different vibrational frequency. So the idea is that everything is here and now, including the spirit world. So they're right here with you. Now, that doesn't mean that they're always paying attention, but the idea is that it simply takes a slight shift in frequency for them to be aware, to connect with you when you send them any kind of message, be it verbal, emotional, or a thought. You are connecting. They do receive it. You may not always receive what they send you back. You may not always be paying attention or be of the correct frequency, or your thoughts or beliefs may be getting in the way of receiving their message clearly, but they are always sending love and encouragement. And if you allow yourself to know that and be of that same frequency of love and connection, then just the very idea that you wish to connect lets you know that you are connecting. You just have to allow yourself to clear yourself out of any ideas, thoughts, or belief systems that would make it seem difficult to receive what they send you, and also pay attention to the synchronicity in your life, since that is often an easier way for spirits to get a message across to you. But again, they always receive. Now, whether it is your own thoughts or not, as long as you pay attention to the idea that what you are receiving, even from your own higher mind, or from the thought patterns within your physical mind, as long as they are encouraging, connective, expansive, positive in that sense, then you can rest assured that they are at the very least in harmony with the kinds of messages and thoughts that spirits would send to you. If there is any fear in them, anything that diminishes you, anything that negatively judges you, anything in that sense that feels disconnected, you are probably dealing with your own fear-based beliefs or a negative ego echo. So it's about the energy, the way in which the connection or message or information makes you feel, and that will assure you that you are making a connection in a positive way to the spirits, whether you are capable of literally perceiving their message or not.
Okay, thank you. Please enlighten us regarding the relationship between capturing orb images with digital cameras and the etheric realm. Are these orbs conscious entities? And if so, are they trying to communicate with us? What is it that they're trying to communicate with us? And is it necessary to use a certain type of flash mechanism for an orb image to appear?
Many devices on your planet, such as digital cameras, are simply capable of picking up certain frequencies that your eyes do not commonly see. The orbs can be many things. They can be probes from another dimension, in which case they wouldn't necessarily be conscious. They would be more like mechanisms made of energy, constructs designed for certain purposes of gathering information. But in its natural state, a spirit will usually return to the shape of an orb. It doesn't necessarily project what you would recognize as a bodily image when it's in its natural state, though it can do so. It can shift into that form if necessary. So sometimes the orbs will be representative of spirits that may just be around you all the time, or may be coming and going. And if you are sensitive enough to perceive them, or your devices are sensitive enough to perceive them, they don't necessarily always have a message for you. You may just be perceiving what is around all the time and breaking through that barrier that allows you to perceive that They are always here, just on a different frequency.
Can you tell us what ghosts are made of? And you've said that they are on the etheric shell of the shell's birth. So is there like a ghostly periodic table of elements within their shell? And are ghosts made of different materials on different planets?
The idea is that the shells are quite common on many different planets and would be very similar in terms of a ghost on one planet or a ghost on another. There may be some slight differences depending upon the vibrational frequencies that are necessary for beings to perceive them or for them to express themselves in different cultures and different civilizations and different worlds and dimensions. But the idea in general is to understand that everything that you think of as an element in your physical reality, your so-called periodic table, also have energy components, non-physical components. Remember, as above, so below. Everything has a non-physical template that allows the physical template to base itself upon. So the idea is that it may not be as many elements necessary to be expressed energetically in ghostly material, but overall, it is simply a refined version of physical matter. In other words, the idea of physical reality is a densification of the idea of what we call electromagnetheric energy. Therefore, it can have a more refined, higher vibratory representation, or it can have a denser, more crystallized representation that you would recognize as physical matter, and any level in between. So the idea of a ghost appearing physically, or even to some degree to your senses, even transparently, would simply be a dialing down of the frequency, a lowering of the frequency of the same material you're made of in general, maybe with not as many components. But the idea is that you all are made of electromagnetheric energy. It is kind of the idea that is recognized or labeled as ectoplasm when it is of a certain frequency densification. And to strengthen that densification would render it down into physical matter, would take on more corporeal elements that are designed to represent itself as a dense crystallization depending upon the elements that are involved. But the idea is that it's all kind of the same matter at different density levels. Again, by a crude analogy, much the same as the idea of ice and water, liquid water and steam are all the same element, just at different frequencies. So it's sort of similar to that idea.
If some spirits are trapped on our world because of their strong belief systems, which did not allow them to realize they're dead, then how are beliefs influencing them when they don't have a body? Do beliefs exist as energy or in spirit level? Does human personality exist in spirit also?
Human personality can be projected from spirit. It doesn't really exist for the being in the same way that it does when you are experiencing a physical life. But the strength of the belief does have effects in energy and can echo into the lower astral realms easily because the material of the lower astral is so vibrationally close to physical materiality. So the strength of a belief, the energy put into it, into holding it to be true, can ripple into the astral realm and to some degree a little bit leak into the etheric shell. Therefore, it can still have consequences even though the being itself may not be experiencing those things in exactly the same way that it did when it was physical and holding on to those beliefs. But there is a gray area, a buffer zone, in which certain beliefs in physical reality can still have to some degree ripple effects or consequences in the lower astral vibrations.
And so those individuals who have passed, are in a low vibrational state, they're still wandering earth in a sense, having negative emotions, they don't want to reincarnate, so they just wander around as ghosts in their miserable emotions, and they're very lonely. What can we do to help those beings?
Always send love, always send light, And allow yourself in a state of appreciation and gratitude for their existence to send a vibration that speaks of and shows of telepathically with images the idea of the beauty and glory of the spirit world, the full color. Send them that energy and allow them to experience whatever they're willing to absorb. But again, just like anything in physical reality, whatever you share with them doesn't mean you get to control or decide what they do with it. What they do with it is none of your business, because they have their own path, just like any physical being still. So the idea is to send them those images of a beautiful place, of their true self, their self-empowerment, wrap them in unconditional love to allow them to understand what the vibration of the spirit world is actually like, but then let them do with whatever you send, with whatever they will do with it.
This person is saying her grandmother passed away, and then she had a dream where she woke in the middle of the night and saw her as light. But she wasn't sure if it was a dream or not since she was so sleepy. Was the person dreaming or were they awake? And how can you tell when something is real?
Well, again, the idea that it may have partially occurred in a dream state or a partial dream state is simply an indication that it might be easier for the spirit to reach you in that state when some of your physical thought process is kind of out of the way or on hold. So it's still real. It's just that it might be an easier state for the spirit to make a connection in. So it may feel a little bit dreamy, a little bit out of physical reality. That doesn't mean it's not real.
And previously you said that in our near future, we'll be able to interact more with our loved ones who have departed. And can you expand on that? And why is it that some people have that ability now?
Well, again, either because it's part of their theme that they chose to experience in this life, or they chose to experience something that made their senses a little bit more acute than most. And again, because again, it's approaching the time for these things to be considered, that in and of itself can make the so-called barriers between physical and non-physical reality a little bit more transparent, in the same way that approaching death in physical life can make your senses more acute to the spirit world. Collectively, approaching certain kinds of thresholds where you're considering the expansion of consciousness and the existence of spirits and so on and so forth can actually allow many people within the physical collective to be able to be more sensitive to the fact that spirits are all around you and make it easier for you to start perceiving them.
How about lucid dreaming and seeing ghosts? How can this, or connecting with dead people, how can one use lucid dreaming in order to have a more heightened experience?
Well, again, in general, lucid dreaming is an experience you're having when you are aware of the fact that you are actually a spirit. Therefore, it's easier to connect to the spirit world because in a lucid dream, you are actually being more of your natural self.
Interesting. Would it help to like call out the name of the person that you want to connect with, or you just have to think of them while you're in a lucid dream?
You can use whatever technique works best for you.
Okay. Is it dangerous to communicate with spirits through the Ouija board? This person's friend had contacted something, but I think it was just an animal spirit or something, since it didn't make much sense to the other person.
Let me put it this way. You have certain symbols on your planet that have certain collective definitions attached to them, so to speak. So it's not in general dangerous, but the idea of the way most people in your society think of the Ouija board actually allows them to expand the idea into a more negative vibration, because that's what you bring to it going in for the most part. So in other words, that you've set yourself up by defining the Ouija board as a dangerous instrument. Therefore, that can create the sensation of connecting to ideas or things or entities that are less than ideal vibrationally. But it's not because connecting to spirit is dangerous, and it's not intrinsically because of the device that may be used as a permission slip to do so, but because of the definition you've imparted to that device that may lower your vibration and make you more aware of matching lower vibrational entities.
And this person is saying, my understanding is that chakras are of the etheric body, while ghosts are basically an astral body on the astral plane. Can you clarify this?
For the most part, what you perceive as a ghost is usually in the astral plane, yes. But the idea of the chakras is simply a physical manifestation of certain patterns of energy that go all the way up beyond the astral into the etheric and beyond. It's just the physical representation of the crystallization of certain consciousness patterns and energy connections that you have to the higher forms of yourself.
And are all ghosts that appear to humans originally from Earth, or do some beings come there from throughout the galaxy to join our etheric plane? Did any Greys die in our Earth timeline and become ghosts and or Anunnaki?
This is rare, but the answer in general is yes, it's possible.
Fascinating. And can our spirit guides appear as ghosts? Can they take on a physical ghost body in our reality? And if so, can they travel back and forth from the spirit realm to the body when they choose to?
Those that are very accomplished in doing that, yes, they can, and many times have. There are, again, certain stories that exist in your society where someone assumed they were interacting with a physical being who was helping them in some way, shape, or form, and later discovered that it turned out to actually be a ghost, a spirit guide, or what have you, that was simply capable of lowering their frequency long enough to be able to actually physically assist the living person. So yes, it's possible, and many spirits are accomplished in doing that. It's not necessarily absolutely common that spirits do that, for they may all have different proclivities in terms of what it is they feel necessary to learn to do, because it is an accomplishment to learn to go back and forth that easily between non-physical and physical reality. But some are quite adept at it.
Interesting. This person is saying that their understanding is that when our physical earthly body dies, we move to another dimension. From that new dimension, do we remember our earthly experience and those of our fellow humans that we left behind? Do we see their grief and try to console them by visiting them? Can our loved ones that have passed on manipulate electricity and move things to let us know they're visiting? If we don't remember our earthly experience, how do we learn from it?
No, you remember everything. Again, you don't lose anything. You have more heightened awareness of every single second of your experience on Earth. Every single second. You lose nothing. So yes, the answer is yes. Spirits can do the things that you're talking about. Again, depending upon how adept they are at doing that or how necessary it is for them to do those things.
Do some people practice being ghosts during different states, such as dreams or death edits or pre-birth?
Yes. Many people practice being spirit guides for the time when they will actually function as such, when you are in the dream state, when you're out of your body, so to speak.
And you've mentioned that some observations of ghosts are actually events which have been etched onto the fabric of space-time and are replaying themselves. What causes events to be recorded like this, and what triggers the replays?
Well, again, remember, nothing is lost. Information is everywhere. So the idea is that everything is accessible here and now from anything that's ever happened or will happen in any parallel reality. It just depends on your focus. The idea of what may cause a replay may be the energy of the person that is interacting with that particular frequency for some reason. Many things can trigger such a thing. Collective consciousness can do it based on stories they've been told and legends they've been told about what it is they expect to experience in a particular location. That can trigger it. But many things can trigger it. It's, again, just like simply going to a place or being in a state where something is recorded and suddenly for some reason being of the correct vibration to suddenly have a replay.
Okay. And are there ghosts in the White House?
Yes.
Can you say anything else about it?
All we are allowed to say is that Dolly Madison often visits.
Interesting. So, well, this session, we pretty much focused on all the questions about ghosts and spirits and everything. And in the future, we'll come back to some other questions. But thank you so much for all your sharing today and helping us have a happy Halloween.
We wish you all a happy Halloween in the spirit of the season. And do remember that you are all spirits having a human experience. And on that note, please enjoy your upcoming meditation.